Today, we are going to look at one of the iconic African animals, the family Giraffidae, which contains the giraffes and their closest relatives. The question of how many living species this family contains is an interesting one, but we will get into that properly later. For now, there are two genera, the giraffes and the okapi. Giraffes are in the order Artiodactyla. I have covered members of this order before, with both baleen whales and pronghorns. Check out one of those videos if you want a reminder about the evolution of artiodactyls. To briefly summarize, artiodactyls are hoofed mammals that bear weight on an even number of toes. This group includes camels, pigs, cattle, deer, and hippopotami, among other groups. And yes, despite their current lack of hooves, it also includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Giraffes are ruminants. This is a group of artiodactyls that share a complex method of digesting their food. Ruminants, including giraffes, have 4 compartments in their stomach. They will chew and swallow their food multiple times, sending it to one stomach chamber before regurgitating it to chew it again and send it to the next stomach chamber. This process continues until the food is fully digested. This digestive system allows ruminants to extract much more nutrients out of tough plant matter than other herbivores can get. Plants have strong cell walls, and most herbivores struggle to break it down to get the most out of their food, so must compensate by consuming a lot more of it for the same benefit. Ruminants get around this problem by using the manual act of chewing to break down the cell walls more effectively. I do cover the relationships between ruminants in my video on pronghorns, so please have a look at that for a fuller explanation of the relationships here. Briefly, there are 6 families of ruminant, which together have around 200 species. Many of these are domesticated, as many ruminants have been tamed and used by humans for millennia. The families more distantly related from giraffes are Tragulidae, or the mouse deer, Cervidae, or the deer, bovines like sheep, cows, goats, and antelopes in the family Bovidae, and Moschidae, or the musk deer. The last 2 families form their own clade, with Antilocapridae, or the pronghorns, being the closest living relative to the giraffes. The last family is, of course, Giraffidae, containing the giraffes and the okapi. Before talking about Giraffidae itself, let's start with some of their extinct relatives. The earliest of the known giraffe ancestors are in the clade Giraffomorpha, as they are giraffe-like, but are not closely related enough to be in the same family as the modern-day giraffes. Note that I am not giving an exhaustive list of all extinct giraffids. I'm just having a look at a few that are more well-known or have been better studied. One feature unique to all giraffomorphs, including the living species today, is the presence of ossicones. Ossicones are covered in skin, but are bony growths like horns and antlers of other artiodactyls. They are permanent fixtures like the horns of cattle or sheep, and are not shed like deer antlers are. The oldest known extinct family thought to be more closely related to Giraffidae than it is to the pronghorns is Palaeomerycidae. This family is known for having 3 ossicones on their heads, often in unusual arrangements. The males also had enlarged upper canines. They were found throughout Eurasia from Spain to China during the Miocene. 5 genera have been described so far. Looking at some of these genera, Triceromeryx had 2 ossicones over its eyes, but a third Y-shaped one at the back of its head. Tauromeryx, by contrast, had 3 long, smooth, and pointed ossicones, looking much like horns. Xenokeryx, on the other hand, had a T-shaped ossicone at the back of its head, with the standard 2 more ossicones above its eyes. Another early giraffe ancestor is Propalaeoryx. Its exact relationship to the giraffes is disputed, with it sometimes being placed as a sister clade to Palaeomerycidae, and not directly on the giraffe lineage even if it is placed nearby. There are 2 species here, which were both fairly small being compared to the size of a fallow deer, which are less than a metre high at the shoulder. They lacked ossicones, which is one reason they are thought to represent a species between giraffes and other ruminants. They did have enlarged upper canines, similar to modern-day musk deer. The next species are placed in the clade Giraffoidea, as they are more closely related to modern giraffes than the Palaeomerycidae were, but are still far enough back to warrant a different family. The main family here is Climacoceras, containing 5 or 6 genera. The genus Climacoceras contains 2 species of deer-like giraffids, and they are notable for their large antler-like ossicones. The image you are looking at is Climacoceras gentrii, which had large crescent-shaped ossicones with several prongs coming out of the main stem. The other species, Climacoceras africanus, had straight ossicones, but they were also large and had multiple prongs coming out of them. The other genus in Climacoceras today that I want to take the time to mention is Prolibytherium. This contains giraffids with extremely noticeable sexual dimorphism. Males had large, leaf-shaped ossicones, while the females had more typical long and narrow horn-like ossicones. Their fossils are known from northern Africa and western Asia, having been found in Libya, Egypt, and Pakistan. Now it is time to turn to the main family we are looking at today, Giraffidae, containing the living giraffes and their closest relatives. While giraffes are known for their incredible height, as you are likely realizing from looking at the extinct relatives, not all giraffes are tall. In fact, the height is only found in one of the two living species, so it is not a defining feature of this family. Instead, the family is identified by the ossicones on their head, along with their long, dark-coloured tongue and the structure of their teeth. There were many genera in this family, divided into 6 subfamilies, so I will only look at a couple of the extinct ones. The genus Shansitherium contained large, moose-like giraffes. There were 3 known species in this genus, and they were from the late Miocene in China. Their distinctive feature is their forked ossicones. These were forked near the base and had a smaller prong pointing forward with larger and often more elaborate prongs pointing backwards. The genus Samotherium was notable for having a neck length that was about halfway between the modern okapi and the giraffe. It had 2 large pointed horn-like ossicones that were slightly curved backwards. The shape of its skull suggests it might have actually grazed on grass instead of browsing on leaves and branches like modern giraffes. Next, the genus Sivatherium was more closely related to the okapi than to giraffes. They are more stocky than modern giraffes, but still had the larger size. Some of the heaviest giraffes ever known were in this group, with some species estimated to have weighed up to 1,300 kilograms or 2,800 pounds. They had wide, antler-like ossicones on their head. It is suggested by some scientists that they could have lived as recently as 8,000 years ago, as depictions in cave art appear to resemble them. Fossils have not been found that are that recent, however, so it is possible that these images were meant to show different species. Sivatherium species disappear from the fossil record from about 1 million years ago. The last extinct species I want to give a mention to are those in the genus Giraffa. This is the same genus as the modern-day giraffe, so these are very closely related. There are 6 known extinct species in this genus, and they vary from Giraffa zhumai, which was about 7 meters or 23 feet tall, about a meter taller than the modern giraffe, to Giraffa sivalensis with the height of 3.9 meters or 13 feet, so quite a bit shorter than the modern giraffe. There are 2 living species in Giraffidae, so let us start with the lesser known of these. This is the okapi, Okapia johnstoni, which is also sometimes known as the forest giraffe, the Congolese giraffe, or the zebra giraffe. It is endemic to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. They live in the dense jungle of the Congolian rainforests, and were not discovered by the Europeans until the early 20th century. They were formally described in 1901, based on a skull and skin obtained from one of the native tribes in the Congo. For years before this proof was obtained, the Europeans in Africa had heard from the locals about a horse-like animal living in the forests, which came to be known as the African unicorn. This unicorn was later confirmed to be the okapi. There was initially some taxonomic confusion, with the okapi initially being placed in the genus Equus, alongside the horses and zebras. This might have been partially based on the description of the locals, but the stripes on the okapi's flanks would not have helped its comparison to zebras. Eventually, it was moved to its current position as a sister genus to the giraffes. Despite the superficial similarity to zebras, this is convergent evolution. Stripes are useful for breaking up the outline of the animal, making them harder for predators to spot. Zebras have, of course, taken this to extremes, but it would also be very useful for a forest animal like the okapi, which would have the option of attempting to hide in dense foliage. While not as impressively tall as their closest relatives, okapi are still large animals. They stand 1.5 meters or 4 foot 11 tall at the shoulder with a length of around 2.5 meters or 8 feet 2. They have a long neck and flexible ears. They do show sexual dimorphism. Males have ossicones above their eyes, and their coat is typically a chocolate brown color. Females do not usually have visible ossicones, but have a more reddish coat. Both sexes have distinctive white stripes on their flanks. They also have an extremely large blackish-purple tongue, which can be up to 46 centimeters or 18 inches long. They use this to browse, feeding on leaves, buds, branches, grasses, ferns, and fungi. They also use their tongue to clean their eyes and ears, again displaying its impressive length. Okapi have poorly developed vocal cords, so their communication is restricted to 3 sounds: a chuff to make contact, a moan used by females when in estrus, and a bleat used by infants when threatened. Males maintain a home range of around 13 kilometers squared or 5 square miles, while females average 3 to 5 kilometers squared or 1.2 to 1.9 square miles. Males migrate continuously around their range, while females prefer to remain in one area. Males defend their territory, but will typically allow females to pass through it. Males will visit female home ranges to breed. Unlike their closest living relatives, Okapi are solitary animals, only coming together to breed. Okapi do not have a set breeding season. Due to their habitat, little is known about their breeding strategy in the wild, but in captivity, females go into estrus every 15 days. When this happens, the male and female undergo a courtship ritual involving circling, smelling, and licking each other. Gestation lasts for around 14 months, after which they give birth to a single calf. Infants can stand within 30 minutes of birth and look very similar to the adults. They grow very quickly in the first few months and start taking solid food at 3 months before being completely weaned by 6 months. Males start to develop ossicones at around 1 year old. Females become sexually mature at 1.5 years old, while males are slightly older at 2 years. Okapi live around 20 to 30 years old in captivity. Okapi are listed as endangered by the IUCN. They are fully protected under Congolese law, but are threatened due to deforestation, illegal poaching, and mining. Despite the Okapi Wildlife Reserve and Miko National Park both having large populations of okapi, they are still declining in the wild. One other reason for this decline is that the socio-economic conflict in the region means that it is unsafe to perform conservation and monitoring efforts. It is believed that the largest impact on okapi was the Civil War from 1995 to 2007. A few years later, in 2012, a gang of armed poachers attacked the headquarters of the Okapi Wildlife Reserve, killing 7 people as well as all 14 okapi in their breeding facility. The leader of this attack was killed during a shootout in 2014. The Institut Congolais pour la Conservation de la Nature, or ICCN, is the organization tasked with the protection of the Congolese national parks. Since 2014, it has managed to severely reduce the illegal activities happening within its boundaries. As of 2015, they had re-established control over 50% of the Okapi Wildlife Reserve. I could not find any more recent sources, but this at least is a promising start for the protection of the remaining okapi, along with the other threatened species in the area. Despite this progress, working in this region is still incredibly dangerous. I was researching the initial attack in 2012 when I started coming across unrelated headlines. First, we have that one in 2012. Here is a headline for that one, reported by the BBC. They underreport the number of deaths, but it likely took time for the exact number of fatalities to be established. But then I noticed this in The Guardian in 2017. 5 park rangers killed in DRC in tragic weekend for wildlife defenders. Clearly, it is still incredibly volatile and dangerous in the area, and armed rebels ambushed and killed 5 people. This group also included foreign journalists, who all managed to make it out alive, but attacking journalists is always a good way to make sure that your actions are reported worldwide. What the title doesn't mention, but the article itself does, is that another person was killed in a separate incident 2 days later. The third article I found is just from last year in 2023. Clash at DR Congo Wildlife Reserve leaves ranger dead, by France 24. A second ranger was also injured in this attack. I had to stop searching after finding these 3 articles, and I wanted each to be from a different news outlet. If I had wanted to, I could have included several articles about different incidents from both the BBC and The Guardian. And these are only the incidents in the Okapi Wildlife Reserve. If I included incidents from Virunga National Park, then I might as well make this entire video about reporting on these conflicts. This is a rather somber note to end this section on, but the struggle to protect the okapi in the region is real, and the cost is measured in both human and animal lives. The other living member of Giraffidae is the one you have likely been expecting since you saw the title for this video. This is the giraffe, Giraffa camelopardalis. I am following the IUCN's classification for this, which has one species with 9 subspecies, but be aware that this is highly likely to change in the future, being split into multiple species. Recent studies using genetic testing suggest that there are as many as 8 species of giraffe, while others argue that there should be at least 3 or 4 different species. I am not going to go through all these species or subspecies, but the basic 3-species taxonomy suggests that there should be a northern giraffe, a southern giraffe, and the Maasai giraffe for the ones found around Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. Here are the names for the 8-species taxonomy if you are interested. Yes, I know that's too much information on the screen, but it just goes to show how complicated this whole subject is. The 4-species taxonomy adds the reticulated giraffe as a species on top of those used in the 3-species model. As you can see from this, the taxonomy of giraffes can get very confusing very quickly, so I am going to leave it there and continue to look at the overall group. Giraffes are patchily found throughout much of Africa. The different species or subspecies are largely found in southern or eastern Africa, but there are isolated populations in more central or western localities as well. Giraffes stand 4.3 to 5.7 meters or 14 to 19 feet tall, largely due to its extremely long and slender neck and legs. One fun fact is that almost all mammals have 7 vertebrae in their neck, meaning the giraffe has the same number of bones in their neck as a mouse. The only exceptions to this, if you are interested, are manatees and sloths. The neck alone is about 2.4 meters or 7 feet 10 in length, but grows mostly after the calf is born, as having a long neck at birth would cause complications for the mother. The reason giraffes evolved such a long neck is unknown. Charles Darwin suggested that it was to escape competition with the many other herbivorous species of the African savannah, as it would give giraffes access to food unavailable to other animals. This hypothesis has only been challenged fairly recently. While giraffes do sometimes feed well outside the reach of other animals, scientists disagree about how often they do this compared to feeding on lower food sources that are available to other browsers. There is also research suggesting that due to their larger size, they require more nutrients than other herbivores, and so are some of the first animals to die off during extreme weather events like droughts. This would seem to offset any advantage they do get, so it means that there is still speculation about why or how they develop their long neck. The giraffe's skin has darker blotches, which can be brown, orange, chestnut, or almost black, depending on the species, subspecies, or individual. One explanation to these blotches is that, similar to an okapi's stripes, it acts as camouflage. Even such large animals can be difficult to see from a few meters away when they are standing among bushes and trees. However, the adults prefer to rely on their size and strength to protect themselves, but this might help the young ones avoid predation. Unlike the okapi, both genders of giraffe have ossicones, although they are larger in males. They are permanent, unlike the horns of pronghorn or the antlers of deer, and they are filled with blood vessels. This suggests that they might have a role in thermoregulation to help keep their body cool in the hot African sun. Like the okapi, they have a long blackish tongue. One suggestion for this colour is that it helps protect it against sunburn. Their tail is 80 to 100 centimeters or 31 to 39 inches long and is used as a defense against insects. Giraffes have very acute senses. Their sight gives a broad field of vision, but is more binocular than is seen in most other ungulates. This is undoubtedly helped by their height, allowing them to see for long distances and giving them ample warning if there is a predator in the area. They also have acute hearing and smell. Due to its size, the giraffe's posture is extremely important. It rests by folding its front legs first and then lowering the rest of its body to the ground. It will usually sleep laying down like this, but they have sometimes been recorded sleeping standing up, especially in older giraffes. To drink, it will splay its front legs and then lower its neck to reach the water source. Another important adaptation for its height is seen in its circulatory system. To get blood up its neck and to its brain, it requires about twice the blood pressure seen in humans. The wall of the heart is extremely thick to cope with this pressure, being about 7.5 centimeters or 3 inches thick. Another adaptation is that it has large sections of veins and arteries in its upper neck to prevent excess blood from going to the brain. This prevents giraffes from fainting when they lower their head. Their legs have the opposite problem. The veins and arteries there are under incredible pressure, so the skin on their legs is thick and kept taut to help blood from being pushed out of its circulatory system. Giraffes are social animals, although the exact size and composition of their herds depends on a large variety of factors. They have long-lasting social groups based on kinship and other factors. Typically, the groups are comprised of females, although younger males may also be included or form their own groups. As males get older, they tend to be more solitary. Females also seem more picky about which other females are in their group, while males are less discerning. One suggestion for this is that female groups might contain individuals related through their mothers. Giraffes are not territorial, but do have large home ranges that they tend to stick to, although males will sometimes be found well outside their known range. Male giraffes have another use for the neck besides feeding. They are used in combat, in a form of fighting known as necking. Necking is a way to establish dominance over other males, with the winners having a better chance to breed. Necking can take several forms. In low-intensity fights, the two males will rub their necks together and lean on each other. The winner is determined by the male able to keep itself more upright. In high-intensity fights, the males will swing their heads at each other, trying to hit their opponent with their ossicones. They will try to dodge each other's blows and then attempt to counterattack. This fight can last up to half an hour, depending on how closely matched the combatants are. Although injuries are rare, broken jaws, broken necks, and deaths have all been observed. Giraffes have a long life expectancy compared to most other ruminants, able to live for up to 38 years. Adults have a high life expectancy, with most mortalities being among calves. Lions are the only real threat to an adult giraffe, given their size, eyesight, and powerful kicks. It is estimated that between a quarter to half of giraffe calves reach adulthood. Giraffes have a gestation period of 13 to 15 months. It can run within a few hours of being born, but spends most of its first few weeks hiding and relying on its camouflage to be undetected. Mothers with calves will form nursery herds, and they will sometimes leave their calves with one female while they feed or drink elsewhere as a sort of creche. Calves will also sometimes feed from females that are not its own mother. Calves will start to feed on solids from 4 to 6 months and stop nursing from its mother at 6 to 8 months. Young reach full independence at around 14 months old. Females reach sexual maturity at 4 years old. Male giraffes have the ability to reproduce from 3 to 4 years old, but due to the competitive nature of breeding, will be too small to actually win a mate until they are at least 7 years old. Giraffes are listed as vulnerable by the IUCN, as their wild populations have been decreasing for decades. Specific subspecies, which might be full species as mentioned earlier, are even more threatened, with the Nubian giraffe critically endangered and the Maasai and reticulated giraffes endangered. They have disappeared from much of their historic range and are threatened by habitat loss and poaching for meat. Severe droughts in part of their range have also had a large impact on their populations. They are a very distinctive species, so there are many conservation efforts attempting to help them. National parks, private game reserves, and community-based efforts are all important for their continued survival. In Tanzania, it is a protected animal, with instances of poaching punishable by imprisonment. Giraffes are also a common fixture in many zoos worldwide, which makes it unlikely for them to go completely extinct, but it is important to maintain their wild populations, as they are an important megafauna on the African savannas. I hope you enjoyed this video. Giraffes are an iconic animal, but the okapi is one of my personal favourite animals, so I enjoyed the opportunity to research them in more detail. The extinct giraffes are also very interesting, even if it is difficult to find out much about most of them. Thank you for listening, and feel free to suggest another group of animals you want to see me cover in the comments.